if you can tilt it so it's kind of tilted at you.
Yeah, see
that might be helpful.
You know, that's pretty good. The problem with me is that, as I like to, I'm not even joking. I came from a family of MacGyvers. Oh, that's much better. I knew there was a reason I had. Jesus, too bad we didn't record that. You know what? I'm going to bring that up. Okay.
It's 20 years of fitness instructing.
So just found out something interesting. I went through 9 episodes of this podcast without even realizing how to set the microphone up properly. Look at what my co-host, she just got here. Yeah, typical woman taking over. No, not taking over, being incredibly helpful, because there are just certain things. I say my whole life, people looked at me and it's like, this guy's either incredibly smart or incredibly stupid. Gene Hackman in Enemy of the State, it's like he was summing me up even though he was talking to Will Smith in the movie. Because at a certain point, people see, wow, Jeremy's so smart. How does he know so much stuff? And then there are other times people are just scratching their head like, this guy's too stupid to even eat a bowl of soup. What's wrong with this guy? So I would have continued to say, oh, I can't get the microphone to be set properly. And she's 3 seconds. Just turn this thing and flip it. And look, Mom, microphone.
It's angled right at your mouth.
It's like this is the whole purpose of this. It's just 5 seconds. I could have figured this out, but you know, my tunnel vision.
We're all a MacGyver in our own way.
Yes, I'm just not in this way for me. You know, my grandfather was the kind of guy, give him a pocket knife and he could build you a Home Depot. My dad was amazing with his hands. Me, I can't even change a tire.
I can.
I know she can. She has a Jeep. She definitely can change a tire. All right, so Jen, if you can give us a little bit as to, because as you mentioned, you're a fitness instructor.
Yep, almost 20 years.
So were you always into fitness? Like in my case, I was a little chubby as a kid, and then my senior year in high school, I began to work out, and cliche, but some cliches are true, I had results, and I wanted to keep up with it. So when did your fitness journey start? Was there an inciting incident? In my case, I had a crush, and the only chance I would have with the girl is if I had abs. I mean, okay.
It happens.
It does happen, but were you just an active kid who then got into fitness, or?
I was the typical Massapequa kid. Everybody played soccer, I think.
Everybody played soccer, and
huge.
I have a picture of myself on Facebook wearing a Massapequa Soccer Club jacket. Like, ooh, I'm so cool.
Maroon and yellow.
Maroon and yellow.
Not
exactly
cute,
right.
But
not cute.
Most of us played back then.
Yeah.
I ran track in high school. I wasn't the best at it.
Did you have a specialty?
I was a sprinter.
Okay, sorry.
I was not good at distance running. I was one of those, I got a cramp, I can't breathe, okay, I'm done with this. So we used to take our gym classes, you know, they changed the curriculum every so often, and we actually did aerobics in gym when we were in high school. Huh. The women did. I assume you guys
remember
didn't.
That. If we did it, it was so unmemorable that I completely.
You might have blocked it out if you had to do it.
All I remember is square
dance.
What the hell? And so people think this is funny that well, you got square dance.
It was so fun.
I did not like it.
Well, social anxiety.
Social anxiety, but the one thing is, I can still remember Alaman left with the old left hand, come back with a right and left grand. Yeah, face your partner, do-si-do.
And we didn't have to get changed.
That was a good thing.
We loved that.
Yes.
But we had this section of our gym class or whatever, and I loved doing the aerobics, and my girlfriends would be like, you're going to be an aerobics teacher. You're going to be an aerobics teacher. And I was like, ha, ha, ha. Well, fast forward how many years, I'm a member at Lucille Roberts, and they ran.
I started there too, I should point out. The one on Sunrise Highway.
Yes, yeah. It was huge. Like,
it was a big gym. For people who know Massapequa, that side of it, near the Amityville, not far from the Sunrise Mall, there was a massive Lucille Roberts, and it's the first gym I joined. My mom, Weight Watcher, she got into it, and it put me on a good path, because this was when I was making my turn from being puffy, overweight, angry kid to just thin, angry kid. But it was at least a step in the right direction to becoming a more physical presence. And you were always active.
Yes.
Like, you didn't have a stretch at 13 where you just sat home and did nothing but eat potato chips. You were always doing something.
I was the skinny kid.
Okay.
And I didn't have to try.
Right.
But as a member of Lucy Roberts, they offered a workshop for members to become instructors. So I was in school, I believe, at the time for ultrasound. And I was like, you know what, why not? Give it a shot. I took the workshop. It was over, I want to say 4 weeks or 6 weeks, something like that. And the manager was like, you are a natural. 2 weeks later, I was teaching classes, got certified, and like I said, here we are almost 20 years later. I'm still teaching classes, different formats, multiple certifications.
Right.
And it just became a passion.
Well, that's fantastic. Okay, so you're professionally, you are phlebotomist?
No, I'm a registered vascular technologist.
Oh, okay. And if somebody had asked me 10 seconds ago, is that the same thing? I would have said, well, yeah, of course.
No, I do vascular ultrasound, basically, is what it comes down to.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Because, wearing a coat and you start calculating, I said,
know.
okay.
Most people assume nurse. Are you a nurse? And I'm like, no.
Okay. All right.
Ultrasound.
But so basically, you're somebody who works a lot.
I do.
And do you enjoy being the vascular technician?
I love it.
Oh, you do?
I do.
It's just that you have patients sometimes that, okay, so you work out of a hospital or an office, or you can do both?
I can do both. I work for a practice for a large hospital.
Ah.
Yes.
Okay, so what is the single funniest thing that a patient ever did while you were in the service of doing your normal function, nothing out of the ordinary, and what is what?
So it was not at my current job. I was working at a different hospital, and we worked split shifts. So several days a week, I worked 8 to 4, which is when it's the busiest, obviously, during the day. And several days a week, I worked at 12 to 8, which is not a bad shift at all. However, when your coworkers go home, then you're responsible for all the stats that come in the ER. When rehab lets out, everybody has a stat test they need done, whatever else is laying around that didn't get done during the day. So I had a stat from the ER that was for leg swelling. So they want to rule out a blood clot in the legs.
Sure.
They sent him up, and now I'm alone in the unit. And I believe he was pretty drunk or something, passed out, and it was the first time anyone took it out while I was trying to scan them.
Wow.
It was my first. So, you have the probe in your hand, you're by yourself, and you're scanning their legs, so you're very close
Sure.
to the area. And all I could really do was, in the groin, push into the groin and say no, and he kind of tucked it back in and passed back out, and that was the end of the incident.
What a nice guy. Oh, I don't
Thankfully, right. I mean, yeah.
Wow.
Everyone understands no matter what language you speak, so.
Right.
Pretty benign, but at the same time, could have gone a bad way.
Yeah, if you were the star of a reality show, you would have gone viral if it were today. It's like, wow, look at how perfectly she handled that. She was so respectful.
I was.
No, that's great. So I know that you competed in bikini, if I'm not mistaken.
I did.
Okay, and you've done how many shows all told?
I think it was 8 or so.
Were they always, after you were quote unquote masters, or?
I did, my first show I actually did figure, because the coach that I worked with, and I was skinny as a rail, I didn't know what the difference was, and he claimed there was no difference, and then when I stepped on stage, I was like,
there is a difference.
Oh.
A-hole.
I had no idea, but it was an amazing experience, and it kind of brought me into that world where I met so many great people, and kind of steered me in the direction that was more appropriate for me, which was bikini at the time. So
now, did you change your training for one or the other, or it was at a point where you just needed to try to put on muscle anyway?
I definitely needed to put on muscle. I needed to step on stage a little bit leaner than I did the first show. But you have to kind of take it as a learning experience when you don't really know what you're walking into. It wasn't maybe as popular as it is right now.
Right. What year was the first year that you did it? I mean, if you're within a few. What was it, like 2010, or was it even after that?
We're in 2023 now,
Yeah.
so it probably was around 2010. I'd have to kind of look back at the pictures and all that to be sure.
Did you have a show where you feel like, if somebody says, all right, Jen, which was your best look, which was the best presentation to the judges, where you said, man, I really nailed this prep?
Like the first time I did Masters Nationals, I took top 10 in both of my classes, and for a first time competitor on a national stage, like, it was pretty damn good.
I'll say
that body. Sure. I look back at those pictures and I'm like, God, that was a body.
Right. Now, to get into that kind of shape, because as you said, you were not somebody who had thyroid issues as a child, or slow metabolism, or had a lot of weight loss to get, and we know people who have lost an enormous amount of weight and you wouldn't know it to see them on stage. It was like, wow, this is amazing that this person lost such and such an amount of weight. So as far as prep, how far did you have to come down in terms of weight to get into that shape, and how brutal were the last stages? Because I always tell people say, oh, Jerry, you're in good shape. And I always point out, number one, that I have more time to do cardio and what I want than the average person, but also there's being in shape, and a guy pushing 50, oh, he's got great abs, and look at his serratus. I always say, to get into contest shape, that's like another 6 weeks from here. So when did it start to become like every morning where you're like, Jesus, a rice cake is a cheat now? What the fuck? Jamie Aronson, the guy I mentioned before, it was a running gag at Bev's that people are like, oh, did you ever use metrics? He says, bro, that's not even a cheat. You can't possibly have one of those bars. And then the joke was, yeah, according to Jan, a rice cake is a cheat. So
gum, flavored gum.
Yeah, flavored
just
gum.
to get you through the day.
Horrendous. But like, how deep did you have to go? Were you down to 20 grams or less of carbs, 1,200 calories? And in other words, did you ever feel like a zombie, or did you still have a basic, like a little, okay, I can do 20 minutes of cardio and that's it, or like, what did you feel like? I
am a very detail-oriented person who likes to have a goal, and I'm very regimented, maybe is the best way to put it. And you kind of, in this, you have to be.
Right.
Because if you're not, you're probably standing next to somebody on stage who is, and that sounds like person that everyone's like, ooh.
That sounds like motivational palaver, but it's so accurate.
Yeah.
It's obvious, but it's something that needs to be said. That if you're not willing to do the work, just know that there's somebody else that felt just as bad or worse, and they continued. It's bodybuilding, but that's also life.
Yes.
It's amazing how often that we say to ourselves, Jesus, this is just like something else that happened in our professional lives or personal lives. Is that there are those times where we feel like, man, this is just doom city here.
You don't want to do it.
You don't want to do it. You don't feel up to it, but you find that reservoir of desire and need, and no, this is what I'm doing, and I don't care how shitty I feel. I'm not sick. I just feel like crap.
Right.
Because I have no
mind
carbs.
Over matter.
Mind over matter. Exactly.
It's a big mental game.
Right.
Usually, I want to say the time where you start feeling like, oh my gosh, 4 to 6 weeks out.
Okay. Right.
Brain fog.
And it's also real. It's something that you don't really know. Now, this is not from a competitive standpoint, but when I was first starting, it was the summer of '93 that I'd started working out at Bev's, member number 2539. I joined in March of 1993, and I put on muscle, but I also got a little puffy. And then in the summer, I went on. There was a big thing at the time called cybergenics, big thing, and it wasn't really a scam. Because the diet, if you followed the diet, it did work, but it was basically keto before keto, would be how I would describe it. And it was not, there had been the Atkins diet, but the Atkins diet had kind of already fallen out of favor, but that's what this basically was. And to try to explain to somebody that if you're used to eating carbohydrates and you suddenly restrict them, you feel horrible.
Awful.
You not only feel awful, but you have no energy. It's like you want to sleep, but you can't, because maybe you have to do cardio or work out, but everything is suddenly terrible. And the brain fog, your brain does not function properly on low carb. So there I was in the summer of '93, and the way they did it, the cybergenics, was actually clever. This is not a contest diet kind of thing. It had 4 days in a row of 30 grams or less of carbs, but then the next 3 days you ate pretty much whatever you wanted. And it was like, we're going to reset the metabolism again and again to continue with the weight loss. The problem was, by the end of, or the middle of the second day, basic human functions were becoming a problem. Wait, where are my keys? I forgot my glasses. No, I don't wear glasses. You can't, you really, so just from that perspective, and I was somebody that was not competing, but just not used to low carbs, nothing was working. I almost ran into a tree because, and it's so stupid, I'm driving along and I kind of went off the path and I'm like, is that tree? What am I doing? And then it finally hit me. Now, if I had normal sugar in my system, I wouldn't have even gotten in that spot. So you have to focus extra hard when you are on low carbs and when you're really, really suffering.
Yeah.
So the last 4 to 6 weeks, and did you peak, or was it like, okay, now we're going to restrict water, and then you're going to drink a half gallon, or what was the last stages like?
My coaches, well, I don't know if it's because I had too much body fat. I tend to hold everything in my legs.
Right.
I have since I was young. I was 110, 115 pounds, and I carried my fat in my legs. You know, it's a lot of women. It's the same thing.
Sure.
So I always had to do some sort of water restriction at the end. But it's the water comes down, the carbs go up, or vice versa. If you're working with a coach that has to learn how your body works. And for me, because I'm so type A, I have a diary every single day. What is my weight? What did I eat? How did I feel? What made me react one way or another? What workout did I do? So that's the only way that you can kind of help your coach to help you.
Right.
Because if you're really unaware of how your body is responding to things, it's a crapshoot. And then how do they truly peak you the correct way?
Right.
Where you look the way you're supposed to look on stage and don't spill over or look too washed out, too stringy. There's so many things.
Right. So to get into that time where you really nailed the prep, what were the final couple of days like? What was the manipulation, either of water or salt, or was it fat loading to get you fuller on stage, or what was the diet? Because a lot of people, as we know, listening, are interested in competing.
Yes.
And not everybody is going to hire a prep coach. They just, because you could get information, and then you have the people that their whole diet is like asparagus and tilapia. They're eating it 5 times a day. Not that there's anything, but so what was the manipulation at the end, or what did you do to really nail that diamond condition?
It's definitely, you slowly, in your peak week, which is the week before you compete, for me, the water gets pulled back gradually, and then the last few days, I want to say, you stop at a certain point. The night prior to your show, you're drinking a very small amount with each meal, because you want to make sure you're still urinating.
Right.
If you stop urinating, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And you can't drink too much because you don't want to then start to bloat on stage, and you have to eat the correct things. It's every coach is going to be different, and my best body, he was a very bro coach. His wife is a bodybuilder, so he did not count macros. It was, this is what I want you to eat, boom, 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 and that's the end of it.
Right, but see, I know this from just informal conversations with, Bev Francis, who was an amazing lady. She was actually the first person, the owner of Bev's Gym, along with Mr. Weinberger.
Legend.
Was Bev herself, and she was working nights when I started in there, which is 1993, as I said. And I know that she was more of a basic, not necessarily strictly prep, but she believed in, yes, garbage in, garbage out, but she also was not somebody, to my knowledge, who was like, okay, and then you're going to eat 10 grams of carbs, and then you're going to jack it up. She would say that portion control is a big deal.
Yes.
And obviously, when you get down to the end, it's more than a big deal.
Yes.
So did you have any wacky, weird cravings during prep? Did you crave salt? Did you start having nightmares about, pizza or cheesecake or anything like that?
I always craved pizza.
You did?
Always.
Okay.
Every single prep that I did.
So you were more...
They would frequently have it at my office, and I would just be like, just open the box, sniff it, close the box, and walk away.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that. One of my old training partner from a very long time ago, my old pal Josh, he was getting ready to compete in a master show. I want to say it was 97. And so he was in his early 40s at the time. And we were at the front desk, and I was just helping him through, just as far as he needed somebody to do cardio with. He was dying.
Yeah.
He looked wasted.
Yeah.
And he was a guy who was always full of life, marched to his own tune, a real character, and he would just come in
The skeleton face.
so tired. And we were at the front desk at Bev's, and I think it might have been, there was a kid, Craig, who worked there back then, and somebody had just left an ad. It was an ad for a local pizza place. It was a big, almost like a newspaper, full-page ad. And to me, it looked like, wow, great pizza, but I'm not even dieting at all, so I'm just looking at it. This actually helped him because he got so angry seeing this, but I'll never forget, he looks at it at this incredible, like a Meat Lover's Pizza, but done by a real pizzeria, not, Pizza Hut.
Yep.
And he goes, Jer, and he goes, I would rather have this pizza than 100 penthouse pets. I don't give a fuck. Let's do the cardio.
People have no idea what it's like to be restricted like that.
Right.
They would mock me at work. I'd be scraping every last grain of rice.
People are mean. They think they're funny.
You're really hungry, huh? Yeah, I'm starving, you asshole.
If they know you like cheese doodles, they'd be like, would you like some?
Just taste it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no. Like you see how strange people are when it comes to somebody who is really focused on exercise, eating right, obviously competing. It's an extreme of that.
Right. There's the fitness lifestyle.
Can't fathom it.
Yeah.
Normal people can't fathom it.
But it's
not normal, but you know what I mean. Who don't understand. They don't do it.
There are so many. Again, there's so many things in life where the average person who is not into that thing has trouble understanding. So, for example, I'm a fan of many sports, but my sport, as far as the sport I've spent the most time watching, is baseball. Now, as a fan of all sports, baseball is the most boring of the sports. It is a sport of mostly people standing around,
waiting,
grabbing their crotch,
spitting,
looking for signs. It's a lot of sound and fury. Well, actually, it's a lot of sound and very little fury. And the action scenes, like if it were a movie, are few and far between.
Yes.
So if you are not a fan, and somebody says, well, if I'm going to follow one sport, no, football, because football is very militaristic. You can tell who's beating the crap out of who and the score. There are so many things with baseball. It's like, well, wait a minute. So the runner crossed home plate, why doesn't the run count? And then that's a 5-minute conversation. But to the baseball fan, it is the most intense, even though there's no action.
Right.
Because baseball games can be impossibly intense and fucking scary as hell. I mean, my father grew up watching baseball, and there were times in the playoffs, the Yankees won 4 World Series in 5 years. He didn't want to watch the games. Why not? It's 3.5 hours of torture, Jared. Whereas football, nobody would ever say that. No one would ever say, hey, I don't want to watch Giants-Patriots.
We're watching it all day long.
Because yes, there's tension, and you don't know who's going to win. But if for people who are fans of baseball and football, they understand what I'm saying. It's totally different. But baseball, the first inning, could end up being the whole game. There's nothing like that in football. It's completely different. But it's for people who don't do this, who don't either compete or take their health very seriously. Hey, a lot of people are just jealous. Because the reality is that Jen and myself, there are people in our age bracket who look 15, 20 years older than we do. And so some of it is people like, they're lucky. Well, yes, in my own case, I can only speak for myself. Right. I am incredibly lucky that I'm able to do what I do. Jen, I know, works her tail off, literally and figuratively. You just heard her say she has a regular job and she's a fitness trainer.
Right.
So she's not somebody who just woke up looking incredible. She works for it. I mean, maybe you are.
No, but that was an argument I used to have with an ex-boyfriend of mine.
Right.
When he would fight with me about going to the gym.
Yeah, and that is a thing, is that there are priorities, and for people who are into fitness, being able to get that daily workout in. Yes, the endorphin rush, but the sense of accomplishment that comes with it, especially if you're, again, I've never experienced this. So in my case, it's just, I didn't sleep well. And I was a 4 a.m. Bev's guy for all those years, starting in 2006, right up till COVID. 4 a.m. Monday to Friday, and then 6 a.m. Well, it was actually when Louis opened. He always opened at 5:30, so that's why everybody loved Louis. Always, Jeremy, I'll get there early. Don't worry about it. You show up at 5:40. I'll already be inside. But the need to do that, and yes, it's an addiction. It's the one addiction, well, maybe caffeine if you can keep it under control, but it's the one addiction that can actually be beneficial. Within
Yes.
reason. We're not talking about somebody losing, who's
Right.
already thin, losing a ton of weight.
Right.
We're talking about using an addictive personality in a good way, which is, I have time to do this, I'm not overtrained, I'm not driving myself into the ground, but this is what I want to do. And I want my partner to
Yes.
know that this is important.
It's a healthy thing. It's part of who we are.
Right.
We're not doing it because we want to be able to tell people we're doing it. We're not doing it because it's a fad. It's part of who we are.
Yes, it's in our DNA now. And in my case, and you can speak on this also, but so the way that I always explain it is that people would ask me, how did you wake up at 3:25? How did you wake up at 5:15 Saturday and Sunday when even people who are into fitness, they want to try to sleep a little later?
Yeah.
So, well, did you just wake up? And I said, no, I set my alarm.
Alarm, that's it.
But they said, but why? What is it? Why? How do you do it? How do you tell yourself at 3:25 that you're going to get up? You only got 4 hours of sleep and you're rising. How are you doing that? And the explanation I always give is, I said, if you've ever seen the movie The Matrix, when Neo, Keanu Reeves' character, visits the Oracle, and there's a lot of discussion about fate and free will and choices and things that you think are choices and aren't. And in my case, what the Oracle says to Neo, you're not here to make a choice. You're here because you already made that choice. Somewhere along the line, I convinced my brain I was no longer choosing to wake up and go to the gym. It was understood that it was happening. I did not wake up to make a choice. I woke up to go somewhere. Not to say, well, do I feel like working? No,
you just do it.
Exactly. The great Nike ad campaign. but that's also true. Just do it. So you want people in your life that are supportive. And
Yes.
Of course it's okay for people to poke fun at you. That's fine. But to be destructive, and especially when somebody is trying desperately to achieve something, to just drag on them. So I don't know, you probably didn't see this, but there was a documentary on the Disney Channel last year with Chris Hemsworth, guy who plays Thor. Now, if you want to talk about genetics, Chris Hemsworth has maybe the greatest genetics I've ever seen. He is an insanely attractive person physically. Like, you're not supposed to look like him. His brother Liam is really good looking, but his brother Liam is ugly compared. He looks like Abercrombie and Fitch times 100. He naturally has an incredible physique. He pretty much, from what we can tell, doesn't even have to diet. The guy is dialed in all the time. But on this program, it was called Limitless with Chris Hemsworth. It was amazing. He went through a series of challenges, in some cases things he was afraid of, like heights, that he tried to overcome. But there was one episode which had him fasting and just drinking a little bit of water so he wouldn't die. But he didn't eat any food for 5 days. And one of the things that was great with this episode is two of his brothers, I think he has two brothers, Liam and the older brother, whose name I don't remember, were with him, and they brought a couple of friends. And the intent of the two brothers and the friends were to do the challenge with him for support. It turns out that's not what they were doing. They were going to pretend to do it. And when Chris started to suffer, there's an incredible scene where he's already feeling like crap, like on day 2, and they're eating pizza. And they're like...
In front of him?
Yes.
Oh.
It's great TV, and he reacts like Thor would, but he's too exhausted to really do anything. But
he doesn't have the energy.
Right. But see, but that was funny, and it's one of the highlights of the show. But he ends up toughing it out and getting through it.
Wow.
And of course, it's easy to be impressed by a guy who looks like him and is very personable, and he's funny, beautiful family, but in the moments where he just wants to eat some food, and these guys, these yahoos, are downing pizza, and they're doing, hey, Chris, come on, this is delicious. Ooh, hey, fuck you! Like that kind of thing. So we want to have supportive people. Yes, you can have fun, but if somebody is dialing in and trying to get down during prep, don't get on their case.
Leave them alone.
Don't leave cheesecake if you know they like it. Don't leave it in there. Don't bring it to their desk. That's all. Just be nice.
That's right.